Hello! In this video, I'll be talking about the effect of nutrition on our immune health. Our immune system is a complex network of many different types of cells and defense mechanisms. We can categorize immunity into two types. Innate immunity is the more generalized part of our immune system that we are all born with. It is capable of responding quickly to infections, but cannot differentiate between different types of pathogens and attacks them all in a similar way. Our adaptive immunity is a slower-acting part of our immune system that can target specific pathogens by recognizing antigens on the surface. After an infection, the adaptive immune system forms antibodies in B cells to remember a specific pathogen. This is how we become immune to a pathogen, and this mechanism is utilized in vaccines as they stimulate antibody production against a pathogen so that the immune system can fight it off more efficiently. Leukocytes, also known as white blood cells, can be categorized into 5 different classes. Myeloid cells like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, and monocytes are all associated with the innate branch of our immune system, while lymphocytes like B and T cells are associated with our adaptive immunity. Monocytes can differentiate into macrophages and dendritic cells, which are important for their role in recognizing a pathogen and initiating an immune response. In addition to the myeloid cells, a special type of lymphocyte called natural killer cells also play a role in our innate immunity. This diagram lays out the multiple types of immune cells in our immune system. Phagocytes are myeloid cells in the innate immune system that can engulf a pathogen and kill it through a process called phagocytosis. Dendritic cells are phagocytes that monitor for pathogens in the skin and mucus. Once it has found a pathogen, it binds to it and presents it to B cells in the lymph nodes to create an antibody against it. This creates a memory of the pathogen that can be used in the future. Neutrophils are innate immune cells that kill pathogens by engulfing them and then releasing a reactive oxygen species, which are toxic to the pathogen. Macrophages kill off pathogens in a similar way, but can also remodel tissue and promote angiogenesis. Similar to dendritic cells, macrophages are also able to activate cells in the adaptive immune system by swallowing a pathogen and presenting antigens on its surface. In the adaptive immune system, B cells work to create antibodies that can remember and identify specific pathogens for killing. After a pathogen has been identified, T cells and natural killer cells can actually go in and kill the pathogen. T cells kill pathogens by binding to them and releasing toxic proteins called granzymes. Natural killer cells kill infected host cells by releasing toxic enzymes to stop infection from spreading. Multiple nutritional factors have been associated with proper immune functioning, but in this video, I will talk about vitamins D, C, and A and their role in the immune system. Vitamin D is one of many essential vitamins that play a role in immune health. Vitamin D controls immune cell activity by binding to the vitamin D receptor, a nuclear receptor that can control gene expression. Vitamin D deficiency has been associated with cardiovascular disease, various types of cancer, and autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis and inflammatory bowel disease. Vitamin D is needed to help immune cells in the innate immune system move and swallow pathogens. It's also needed for the production of antimicrobial peptides, defensin, and cathelicidin. Vitamin D can also make dendritic cells more tolerant, have fewer antigens on their surface, and release anti-inflammatory cytokines or chemical messengers. It does so by decreasing the expression of inflammatory genes like MHC2, CD80, and CD54 in immune cells. Similar to dendritic cells, vitamin D reduces the amount of antigens presented on macrophages and monocytes. Since antigen presentation on macrophages triggers T cells to activate, vitamin D can indirectly affect T cell activity. It can also reduce inflammation and tissue damage by inducing T helper cells to stop releasing inflammatory cytokines and start secreting anti-inflammatory ones instead. It can also stop the production and maturation of B cells and induce apoptosis or cell death in activated B cells. The anti-inflammatory effects of vitamin D are important for preventing inappropriate immune responses, especially those in patients with autoimmune disorders. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is an autoimmune disorder characterized by the destruction of the myelin sheath in neurons, which acts as a protective covering. This disrupts communication within the nervous system and can result in numbness, tingling, mood changes, memory problems, pain, fatigue, blindness, and/or paralysis. The progression of MS can depend on disease type and environmental factors like nutrition. Some studies have found that vitamin D deficiency can increase the risk of developing MS and influence the progression of the disease. Vitamin D deficiency in patients with MS increases the risk of relapses that can worsen the disease, as well as demyelination. These findings may have an impact on treatment plans for patients with MS. Inflammatory bowel disease is another autoimmune disease characterized by inappropriate immune responses against host cells instead of pathogens. Excess inflammation in the digestive system results in abdominal pain, chronic diarrhea, weight loss, and fatigue. Vitamin D supplementation can help maintain a healthy balance between inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokines and control T cell production in patients with inflammatory bowel disease. This can reduce symptoms and the rate of flare-ups. Vitamin C is another essential vitamin for the immune system. It's needed to make collagen, which maintains the integrity of the skin barrier, preventing pathogens from getting through the skin. Vitamin C deficiency can also lead to poor wound healing and scurvy, a disease in which the blood vessels are weak and prone to breaking. In the immune system, vitamin C is necessary for the movement of neutrophils and macrophages to fight off an infection. When neutrophils have killed off a pathogen by oxidizing it, vitamin C is then needed to induce apoptosis, or cell death, in neutrophils to prevent further damage to tissues during an immune response. Vitamin C is especially important for our immune system because it can change the types of cytokines secreted by our immune cells in both the adaptive and innate branches of our immunity. The effect vitamin C has on our immune cells can be pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory, depending on cell type and infection. The effect vitamin C has on immune cells seems to be epigenetic. It's needed as a cofactor for the expression of many genes involved with immunity. It can also act as an antioxidant. Buildup of oxidants can trigger immune cells to initiate an inflammatory response. Getting an adequate amount of vitamin C can strengthen our immune system so that we can better fight infections, while also prevent an inappropriate inflammatory response. Vitamin A is another essential vitamin for the immune system that can control gene expression in immune cells. It gets converted into retinoic acid in the body, which binds to a nuclear receptor called the retinoic acid receptor. It's needed to maintain the mucosal and epithelial barriers, which are the first lines of defense against pathogens. Vitamin A deficiency can cause the epithelial cells to shrink, increasing the risk of pathogens getting through. It's also needed for the formation and death of thymocytes, which mature into T cells. Like vitamin C, the effects of vitamin A can be inflammatory or anti-inflammatory depending on the type of immune cell. Retinoic acid can transform macrophages into an anti-inflammatory form that promotes tissue remodeling and angiogenesis, which are important processes for healing. In dendritic cells, retinoic acid promotes the secretion of inflammatory cytokines that help carry out an immune response. This is important for fighting infections. Overall, the immune system depends on essential vitamins like vitamins A, C, and D to carry out proper responses to an infection. The effects of these vitamins may also have implications for the way we treat autoimmune diseases, like inflammatory bowel syndrome and multiple sclerosis. Thank you for watching this video, and please feel free to check out my resources, as well as conduct some research on your own on how nutrition can impact our immune system.